Hello, my name is Elizabeth Baker, and I am doing my presentation on the use of antibiotics in agriculture and their effect on human health. Okay. To begin with, we're going to go into why antibiotics are used in agriculture in the first place. They are generally given for one of two reasons. The first is disease prevention, which is FDA approved. And the second is to promote the growth of animals, which is not FDA approved, but it is a widespread practice because it is an effective way to rapidly grow animals. The FDA does approve of the use of antibiotics in food animals to prevent sickness in animals that are sick or at risk of becoming sick, and also to control disease outbreaks in groups where a small number of animals are sick and the rest are likely to become sick. Some countries use about 80% of total consumption of medically important antibiotics in the animal sector, which is kind of scary because medically important antibiotics are those which are most important to humans, and if we lose them, that is our last line of defense against bacterial infections. There are a number of concerns with overuse, not the least of which is creating resistant bacteria, which can spread from animals to humans. These resistant bacteria are known as superbugs, and they are a serious threat. They are especially caused by subtherapeutic doses of antibiotics that expose bacteria to low doses of these drugs over a long period of time, so not all of the bacteria are killed off, and the strongest survive and proliferate and create your new strong superbugs. This is a major concern for those drugs that are vital to human health that I mentioned before. And the World Health Organization states that some bacteria that cause serious infections in humans have already developed resistance to most or all of the available treatments. So this is clearly a growing concern. And the second slide of this is kind of more of the same. There is a 2003 study on a nationwide antibiotic restriction program that was studied in Turkey. And it confirmed the connection between increased bacterial resistance and increased antibiotic use. And this will lessen the power of antibiotics for future generations. And as humans rely heavily on antibiotics to not die from the infectious diseases that were once so deadly to us, this is a serious threat. Other negatives of overuse are the stress that it can cause to the healthcare system to create so many antibiotics, and the fact that there can be adverse drug reactions to the drugs. And the Lancet Planetary Health published a study on how interventions that restrict antibiotic use in food-producing animals reduced antibiotic resistant bacteria in these animals by 39%. So by restricting antibiotic use, you can prevent resistance very effectively. There are two ways in which a human can get resistant bacteria from an animal. The first is direct contact. So say you're a farmer and you are out interacting with the animals, or you contact animal waste, you can get the bacteria that way. You can also get it as a consumer through contaminated products. Antibiotic-resistant gut bacteria can get inside of the meat during the processing phase, and produce can also be contaminated through contact with soil or water that has animal waste in it. There are also concerns with restricting the use. A lot of these are ethical concerns, particularly from veterinarians, who feel that letting animals get sick is a cruel act, and they're acting out of risk management to not want animals to get sick in the first place. And Morgan Scott, an epidemiologist, says that prevention is a legitimate and ethical practice and that less is better and 0 is not an option as far as antibiotics go in animal agriculture. There is also the concern that by cutting antibiotic use cold turkey, more bacteria can be spread to humans. However, this is not a huge concern because inspectors do watch for this. And we're going to go to the U.S. regulations. The term antibiotic-free actually means nothing, as this term is not regulated by the FDA. Furthermore, animals are not supposed to have any antibiotics in their system by the time they reach market. So the likelihood that you are ingesting antibiotics through meat or animal products is very low. The main concern is that these animal products can carry antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The FDA outlawed the use of medically important antibiotics in 2017, so this is some important legislation. Such use is under government oversight now, and the use for growth promotion is heavily discouraged, though not banned, and other antibiotics can still be used. Those which are not the medically important variety, they can be used for prevention purposes. We have some global regulations. In 2005, the World Health Organization established a list of critically important antimicrobials for human medicine. And under this, the use on animals is heavily deterred for these medically important antibiotics. And in 2006, the European Union instituted a ban of the use of antibiotics for growth promotion. In 2017, the World Health Organization issued a recommendation to not use antibiotics on healthy animals for either preventing disease or for promoting the growth of animals. So just all around the board, limiting the use of antibiotics unless they were absolutely needed. So under this, diagnosis would be required to use the antibiotics and to determine the most effective and prudent antibiotic to treat their specific infection, and to not use the medically important ones at all. And overall, this was done in order to preserve antibiotic effectiveness for future generations. Some more global regulations. There was a 154-country report from the FAO, the OIE, and the WHO on antibiotic resistance and legislation against that in numerous countries. These organizations came to the conclusion that there is a serious gap that requires urgent action as far as antibiotic resistance goes. Only 64 of these 154 countries limit antibiotic use in animal agriculture at all, which is kind of crazy, and 39 of these were high-income countries. So there's a clear income discrepancy as far as being able to afford to limit antibiotic use goes. 67 of these countries had any sort of regulation of the production, licensing, and distribution of antimicrobials for use in animals, which is, again, kind of crazy. This is not even half of the total of the countries, so it's not being taken very seriously. They had better numbers for human regulations, but animal agriculture regulation was very low. And there is another issue that unregulated medicine can be purchased in public markets, kind of a black market of antibiotics, that is a concern of its own. Some safe alternatives to antibiotic usage. Some safe alternatives would include only using antibiotics when absolutely necessary, so only giving them to sick animals, using the appropriate dosage and for the correct duration, educating veterinarians on ways of limiting usage, and requiring approval before usage. And if the antibiotics absolutely have to be used, do not use the ones on the FDA's Guidance 213 list, the ones that are medically important to humans, because those are our last line of defense. They are the strongest ones we have, and we do not want to lose those. And as preventative measures, prevent disease in animals in the first place. So vaccinate food-producing animals and make sure that they are kept in hygienic conditions and good housing so they don't get sick in the first place. And last but not least are the research questions. So we have the first one: what are the most effective methods of preventing the spread of antibiotic-resistant bacteria from livestock to humans? And then what about from human to human? And the next one: why would livestock owners desire to use certain antibiotics over others, such as the ones now banned from use by the FDA's list of medically important antimicrobial drugs? And this is my citations list. Thank you for listening.